Hi, Samantha.
Hi, Diane. How are you?
Good. Hi, everybody. Here we are in the middle of this global isolation. You are in Long Island, yes?
Yes.
I am in Connecticut. It is Thursday, and the world has stopped, and people are sometimes happy with this and sometimes confused. And I thought to have a conversation with you, who I have to tell everybody that I know you since you're a little girl, even though now you are a very famous doctor, psychiatrist. I've known you as a little girl. But so we should talk about, what do you think? What do you think is going on right now in people's heart and mind?
I think a lot of people, I've just been hearing from a lot of people about how anxious they are. They're sort of feeling restless and confused and just not knowing where to turn. They feel a lot of pressure to do a lot of things at once. Loneliness has come up a lot. We keep hearing, this idea of social distancing that's been sort of stressing people out. And it's really weird as a psychiatrist. It's funny, like one of the best ways for people to handle depression or anxiety is often doing things that are more social, spending time with other people or doing things with other people for people who have depression or anxiety. So it's really strange to be in this position of saying, hey, stop. This is not
I'm going to stop you here, because for me, being alone is not being lonely, right? Being alone for me is how I get my strength. You go back to yourself, and that's where I personally find my strength. So it's interesting, because I could never heal myself or feel better because of others. I think that maybe that's why I said, to be in charge is first and foremost a commitment to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe my advice would be, it's actually we should remember that to be alone is not being lonely. And to be alone means that you have the opportunity to reboot.
Yes.
And that would be my advice.
I wholeheartedly agree. And some people, I think, are so afraid of being alone and with their thoughts and having to press pause. And now the world has pressed the pause button on us. So we are sort of in this weird moment, and it can be sort of terrifying. I used to be that person who would get on an airplane and would have all my reading material, because God forbid I couldn't be sort of alone with my thoughts. And I remember once having sort of a panic.
Why?
It was just sort of the way that I sort of needed to sort of fill my mind, I think, because I was afraid of exactly what you were talking about, is that sense of being alone, but how,
being alone is such a privilege. Because, Vartan Gregorian, whose grandmother survived the Armenian genocide, told me one thing, which is the most valuable thing ever. The only thing you have complete control of is your character.
Yeah.
You could lose your health, your wealth, your beauty, even your freedom, but you never lose your character, and even under torture. And I know my mother, since she survived the camps, she survived everything, but she had her. And I think this is an opportunity to realize that to be alone is a privilege. That's how you build your strength.
Yeah.
But I do understand that with what's happening, it's not just being afraid of being alone, it's also what is happening to the world. I mean, the world has never stopped globally, right? So how do we deal with that? And what do you tell your children? And my advice is that individually, each one of us should spend at least half an hour, if not more, focusing on what is it that I should learn from this forced confinement.
That's
What do you think you have learned?
It's such a good point, though, because it is when people sort of go through difficult challenges or times, it's the idea of, some people see it as a roadblock, that's sort of this wall that they've hit. But, when people sort of approach it with that question of, what can I learn from this? That they sort of have a whole, like they sort of see it as a verb, as something that's transformative, that has another side to it. And, what is that sort of growth mindset that you can bring to any challenge that you face, that I think some of us are so, it's so easy. I think Darwin had said, it's not the smartest of us like who survive, it's the ones who are most receptive to change, and our ability to transform, that we often don't trust ourselves.
Well, but that's terrible. I mean,
I know, I agree with you.
That's terrible. The only person you can trust is yourself.
But that's growth. That's sort of part of, I think, that self-knowledge you're so beautifully speaking of, is that sense of the beauty of solitude, of knowing yourself, of deepening that sense of self, and having that confidence that, that you radiate. But how to sort of...
It doesn't happen like that. I mean, it's a lot of practice, and I'm not always confident, and I wake up feeling like a loser, and all of that. But I do know that the only place I will find the strength is in myself, and I think now is a good time to tell everybody. You just do the little practice, and of course, you can only do that if you're true to yourself, and it's a commitment. And if you own your imperfection, and we all have imperfection, they become your assets. If you own your vulnerability, it becomes your strength.
Absolutely. I think if you can be self-authored, that you feel that sort of you are in charge, literally, of what you're doing, and also allowing, sort of giving yourself that permission to change, not being so stuck in, I am this person.
That's right. That's right. Very well. But especially right now, I think that to some point we have to go with the flow. Yeah. We have to say, and we have to take advantage. I've been now in this house for 3 weeks. I bought my house when I was 26 years old, and I have always wanted, maybe one day I will be stuck here and won't be able to go anywhere, and then I'll have time to do all these things. And I've been now here 3 weeks, and I'm working on 2 books, and somehow the doing nothing, the days go fast, right? What is that?
I think, and there are a lot of people who are really beating themselves up right now because they're sort of trying to Maria Kondo their lives, or, write their novel, or, just be mastering the violin. And just these days are melting into one another, and it's really frustrating. And I think we've got to give ourselves a break and not put so much pressure on ourselves to be reinventing ourselves.
Absolutely. I think it's time to be. Everyone is forced to stay and not move. That makes us realize that, oh my God, we move so much. Yeah. And so not moving is something that the universe, somebody is telling us, stop. So we all have to take a lesson from that, personally, individually, and then obviously collectively we will understand what's the meaning about that.
And that sort of question of how do we sit with stillness and sit with ourselves when we don't have all these external distractions, or, oh, I have to do this, or I've got this in my schedule.
How about take the time to discover yourself? How about take the time to say, oh, I have a big nose. I hate my nose. And what about just saying, you know what? Own it, accept it. And how about becoming friends with yourself? Because the most important relationship in life is the one you have with yourself, right? Absolutely. Once you have that, any other relationship is a plus and not a must.
And that, like, that relationship to that self that is transforming too, you know, that you are always sort of in motion. And I think we're always in progress. And some of the sort of best lessons I've realized about myself was about things that I've been really wrong about, that I thought I was this kind of person who was really rigid, or actually being able to not make my bed, or, you know, these little things. And this intense time right now has forced me to rethink these things that I thought that was sort of very, very important to me. I was really anti, just as a small thing, my kids being online, playing video games. And now I realize it's this lifeline for my son to be playing with his friends. That's where he interacts. Or my daughter, I used to be very anti TikTok, and I found myself not only doing TikToks with her, but actually like dancing around. And I used to sort of think, who is this Charlie D'Amelio, this girl who's dancing all the time on this show?
You freed yourself.
Yeah. When you get stuck, right? Like you get stuck in these ideas of who you are.
Let's try to give advice to people who want advice. What is the question? How are you staying strong during this time? You answer first.
I think number one is sort of giving yourself permission to just be, and not putting pressure on yourself to sort of do 1,000 things. And the other thing, just as the nuts and bolts, is just giving people like a sense of being in charge of some schedule that they have in front of them. That sort of, is it choosing to make your bed, take a shower, get dressed, put on some lipstick? Those types of things, I think, can give you a sense, a semblance of normalcy.
Yes, and I think also you should look at this as luxury. Oh my God, this is a gift. I have this time. Maybe I do something that I've never done, but not with the obligation of doing. And then also just enjoying the nothing, you know, enjoying the stillness.
Yeah.
And you learn a lot. So that's the next question. How do you deal with idleness? Well, I think you just own it and just say, you know, that's what meditation is about, isn't it?
Yes, mindfulness. And that's really helpful for some people, though I know some people who tell me that makes them really anxious, that when they are, you know, that works for you though, too. I think it's, you know, if it's going outside, or if it's just sort of maybe like doing something creative, or playing cards, or reading, you know, just sort of getting into, or journaling, as you were saying, like all opportunities.
Absolutely. I can't believe that is my advice to everyone. Please start a journal. Write a journal about this. It doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter if you never read it again, but and try to write it. I mean, I can't write in the computer, but write a journal is good. And any communion you could do with yourself is good. Any discovery you could do with yourself is great.
Yeah, and I think that helps you also let go. And I think, as you're saying, like, embrace the solitude if you can. I think there's a lot of weird pressure on us, and it's important to reach out and be in touch with people. But I also know people who are just so drained by the end of the day, by all of that, that they're not like finding it to be revitalizing in some way. And I think if you can actually carve out that solitude, it's really helpful.
I think it's a lot harder to cope with somebody else than just being alone. Really.
that we're seeing a lot of that. Relationships are suffering.
But I think being alone is take advantage of this moment and own it. I'm writing a book right now, and the title is Own It, right? Because if you own, so I think my thing would be own this moment, own the situation, don't fight it, don't bully it, and be interested and curious in what it is going to teach you. I think we all have a lesson to learn. I don't know what my lesson is, but I think that's what we should do.
Well, maybe as you're saying that, it's making me think about the idea that there's so much of maybe in our lives that we do that we're not owning. And that this is this moment to reimagine that. Our schedules, often we don't own them. We're sort of like, we're tumbleweeds half the time, right? We're being thrown about by all these external demands that are kind of pulling at us and picking at us. and that sort of we're forced to have this new normal where we actually can be in charge of our sort of ourselves and what we want to own in our lives going forward.
When did you feel in charge the first time?
Gosh, I think it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I was sort of, I think when I became a doctor, that I was able to,
that's a good
but it was really scary, I have to say. There was something terrifying and like amazing about it.
That's wonderful. And do you ever feel like a loser?
Do I ever feel
Like a loser?
Like a loser? Every day.
Okay. That's what everybody answers. That's the thing. And what is the one imperfection that you have that you turn into an asset?
I'd say I think my sort of curiosity with, I always want to know more. And I think that it makes me sometimes dissatisfied with what I've completed or what I've done. But I do recognize, though, that it does give me, it's sort of, it's also that thing that spurs me forward and makes the one side where it's really still, but how do I swim in the middle?
So one word you want people to know, remember?
Oh, goodness.
That's a word, goodness.
Goodness and humanity. I think we've forgotten humanity.
I will say, trust yourself. Trust yourself. You know.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
InCharge.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.